flying over the central farming region of the United States, a vast, rich area in the middle continent. Each year produces enormous harvests of food, yet whose agricultural and industrial resources are still being developed and whose full potential has yet to be realized. What makes the central farming region so important to our nation and to the world? Why is it foremost among the great agricultural areas of the world? What is life like for the farmers who live and work here, and what are some of their problems? First, we must realize that the central farming region is very large. It covers nearly 1/3 of the total land area of the United States. It is almost 1,000 miles from Canada, the northern boundary, to the Texas Panhandle on the southern border, and it is over 1,000 miles from Montana in the west to Ohio in the east. Still more important, climate generally favorable to agriculture prevails over the entire region. Rain, adequate for a variety of crops, falls from storms that sweep from west to east over the land. And because the central farming region forms a great natural basin, the water runoff follows the overall slope of the land. Rivers flow eastward from the Rocky Mountains and westward from the Appalachians, joining and swelling the mighty Mississippi as it moves toward the Gulf of Mexico, draining the whole region. But climate and water are not enough to make the central farming region a great agricultural area. There is something else. Good soil, soil rich in the minerals that plants need for food. Soil that's easy to work, not rocky or heavy with clay. Large fields that are generally flat or gently rolling so that rain soaks in instead of running off as it falls. There is much land like this in the central farming region, but it is used in different ways to grow a variety of crops. Barley, for instance, is a major crop on the flat, rich soil of the Red River Valley in North Dakota and Minnesota. But so is flax, from which linseed oil and fine linen are made. And so are sugar beets and spring wheat. Dairy cattle, producing the fresh milk, butter, and cheese consumed by city dwellers in the Great Lakes area, graze on much of the land farther east, in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan. But the same general area produces great quantities of fruit, such as cherries, apples, strawberries, and blueberries, as well as vegetables such as peas and potatoes to fill the nation's food basket. From Ohio westward through Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, parts of Kansas and Nebraska, corn is the chief field crop. This is the corn and livestock belt of the central farming region. Cattle and hogs raised here to be processed in meatpacking plants in the Midwest provide the whole country with beef and pork. Because corn is excellent feed for livestock, most large-scale corn farmers keep herds which they import from western ranges to fatten and sell. More grown in the American Corn Belt each year than on all the rest of the world's farmland put together. Farther west and south, winter wheat is the major crop across broad sections of Kansas, Oklahoma, and the Texas Panhandle. But some land has not been plowed for crops. Native grasses which cover these hills and valleys provide excellent grazing land for beef cattle. In spite of the great variety of crops raised and the different kinds of farming carried on in the central farming region, certain general facts do stand out. The north-central area, with its cool summers and short growing season, is mostly given to dairy farming, has earned the nickname of America's Dairyland. The central area, south and west of the Great Lakes, is the greatest corn-growing country in the world. Summers there are hotter and the growing season is longer. At the same time, this area is the source of much of the prime beef and pork of which Americans eat more than most people around the world. In the higher, drier areas west of the Corn Belt and Dairyland, wheat is the principal crop, and it is because of the enormous harvests of golden wheat that this region has come to be called the breadbasket of the nation. Because of local conditions of the soil or climate, certain areas in the central farming region produce mainly fruit and vegetables, which must also be included in our thinking about the total agricultural production of the region. As we have seen, the variety of things grown, as well as the quantity, makes the central farming region one of the foremost agricultural areas of the world. However, the enormous productivity of modern farmers in the central farming region cannot be explained solely by the natural resources of rich soil, good climate, and sufficient water. No, we must be aware of something else, something very important, which man himself has developed to work the land. That something else is machinery. Machines make the difference. Machines that do the work of 100 men. Machines that work tirelessly, quickly, efficiently. Machines for combining wheat and for every other kind of farm work. For harvesting corn and potatoes. For milking cows and dusting crops. For making silage, plowing, planting, cultivating, storing, fertilizing, spraying, baling, bottling, and even vending farm products. Farming has been mechanized, and machines are largely responsible for the tremendous production of the central farming region. Production which means that Americans, unlike people in many other parts of the world, are well-fed and well-dressed most of the time. But as the growing number of abandoned farmhouses in the Midwest tells us, the large-scale use of machinery for farming has created some problems and brought about some changes in the central farming region. For one thing, great numbers of people are leaving their farms to move to the cities. Cities like Omaha, Chicago, Cleveland, and others, each of them a center of industry with over 500,000 population, where factories provide employment for many people who have left their farms. New housing developments in city suburbs provide some of these people with homes near the factories where they work. But as one of them will tell you, those who want to stay on the land have to adapt their farming methods to the changing times.
My name is Charles Grant. Farming is the way of life of my family. But it isn't as it used to be. My great-grandfather homesteaded this place in the 1870s. In cultivating the land, the government gave him title to the original 160 acres of this farm. That includes the fields we're looking at now, plus some pasture land on the other side of the barn. All he could take care of, even though he had 4 boys and hired hands at harvest time. Nowadays, with proper soil management, contour cropping, and crop rotation, plus hybrid seed, fertilizers, and chemicals to control insects, weeds, and plant diseases, a good farmer can get several times as much from 160 acres as my grandfather could. And with machines, a modern farmer can just as well take care of 600 or 700 acres as 160. This farm, for example, has grown to 640 acres. That's 1 square mile of land. But many farms today are even larger. When our neighbors became discouraged during the drought years, my dad bought them out. And as my brother and I came of age, he was able to send us to agricultural farm organizations like the ones that publish these magazines are always coming out with something new. And county agricultural agents in every part of the country are very important in spreading information about new and better ways to farm. Any farmer who is willing to take the trouble can learn how to be a better farmer, and that's what it takes to be successful today. Farming has become a big business. It takes a lot of land, a lot of money, and a lot of machinery. But most important, it takes know-how. Those that haven't got the know-how soon go out of business. That's what I keep telling my son John, for someday he'll be running things, and I want him to make a go of it.
This is a picture of what Charles Grant has described. On a section of land, 640 acres, where once there were 4 farms and 4 different families, there is now only 1 farm. And that 1 farm, if it is well run with the help of machines, produces much more than all 4 used to, with fewer hands to do the work. For families like that of Charles Grant, life on the farm today is much easier and more pleasant than it was for his grandfather and great-grandfather. He lives in a modern home. His wife has all the kitchen appliances that city women have to help accomplish their daily tasks. He transport his children to large consolidated schools, which are replacing the old one-room schools of yesterday, where all 8 grades studied together under one teacher. Regular mail delivery, television, telephones, and radios keep him and his family in touch with all that goes on in the world. New highway systems throughout the area link farms like that of the Grants to Midwestern cities, making it easier than ever for modern farmers to ship their produce to city markets. And markets in the major cities receive produce, grain, and livestock by the truckload every day. On a map, we can see how highways and railroads tie the central farming region to the economy of the rest of our country, and how the central farming region has been opened up to trade with the whole world. From the Atlantic Ocean, ships from all nations can sail up the St. Lawrence Seaway, through the Great Lakes, all the way to Milwaukee and Chicago. Freight from the farthest corner of the world is unloaded daily at these great inland seaports. And produce from Midwestern farms is loaded for shipment abroad. Thus, the central farming region has become a source of food and supplies for the entire world. And at this moment, agricultural scientists are working in laboratories to develop new breeds of plants, new fertilizers, chemical weed killers, and insecticides, with which farmers can continue to increase the productivity of the land to meet the demands of an ever-growing population. Demands for grain such as wheat and corn, for vegetables such as peas, for potatoes, for fruit such as cherries, strawberries, and apples, for dairy products made from the rich milk produced by Midwestern dairy herds, for beef and pork, as well as for manufactured products from the mills and factories of Mid-America, all of which make up the total yearly output of consumer products from the vast fertile lands of the region. Products which will play an important role in the national economy as well as abroad, so long as men have need to eat. For their agricultural wealth, for the abundance in which they live, for the plentiful harvests and prosperity, Americans have much to thank the Central Farming Region, USA.